Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic: India Tiger Quest in search of Bengals, sloth bears, and more. Presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Payal Mehta. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you for being here with us today. Take it away, Payal.
Hello, everyone from India. I'm so excited to be doing this presentation for all of you. You know, all of us here in India, the NatHab team is getting ready as we come closer to the start of the India Tiger Quest season. And I'm sure that most of you who've logged in today are people who've booked the trip already and are themselves preparing for the trip or at least thinking about the trip already quite excitedly. And I'm here to help you prepare and to know all you need to before you go on your India Tiger Quest trip. For those of you here who haven't booked the trip yet but are thinking about it, you're also sure to definitely learn something about the trip on this webinar, right? So let's get going without much ado. So a little overview of this webinar. I'm going to take you through the itinerary quite quickly, give you the orientation of where we are in the world, sort of geographic orientation. I'll tell you about the weather and the kind of packing list you require. I think this is one of the most important parts of this webinar. What kind of transport you'll be using, activities. This is mainly a safari trip, so how safaris work in India, uh, a little bit about the accommodation, food, and at the end, like Rob said, we'll have some time for question and answers, right? So let's get started. So this trip has a really short and simple itinerary, but doesn't make it a less special trip at all. It's a super duper special trip. Uh, it has two versions, the classic nature trip version and the photo version. I'm mostly going to focus on the classic nature trip this time. It has starts with 2 nights in Delhi, and then we go to Ranthambore National Park, where we spend 4 nights. And those of you who have booked an extension to Agra, take off to Agra from there to see the Taj Mahal, while the rest of you who have not booked the trip go back to Delhi and either fly back home or join another sort of paired up trip in Asia somewhere, right? Let's go into a little bit of detail. But before I do that, let's look at the geographic sort of orientation. So, Ranthambore National Park is here in India, in Asia, right? Now, if I zoom out a little bit, you will see that Ranthambore National Park is at sort of the easternmost edge of a huge Sahara Arabian Thar desert band in that latitude, right? Where the desert abruptly stops in its easternmost edge. This point is also the westernmost edge of the range of the tigers. Any more west from this point, tigers cease to exist in the South Asian belt, right? So you're in a very interesting spot, but it's also a arid, sort of hot region of India. That is a reason why we have this trip in the summer in one of the most hot arid parts of the country, right? It is a time when vegetation starts drying out, visibility improves, and it's basically designed to maximize your chances of seeing this beautiful animal out in the wild. And also, hopefully, it'll present some fantastic photo opportunities for those of you who are interested in that. So, let's look at the itinerary quickly. Your day one of this trip is basically you just arriving into Delhi, just acclimatizing yourself to the country to the food to the temperatures to the weather and all of that. It's basically an easy, relaxing day. Day two is the day we do like a half day excursion to explore Delhi, the capital of India. We go visit a beautiful mosque, the Friday mosque, the Jama Masjid. We do a little tour on the cycle rickshaws to see the old part of Delhi, the old Delhi city. And then we visit a beautiful Sikh temple and learn about that community and their beliefs and culture in India. And we do all of this in a beautiful air conditioned coach. We drive around from one spot to the other. We get off, explore, and get back to our AC coaches. That's how this sort of half day excursion will have. Besides the expedition leader, for this part of the tour, we will also have an expert local culture and history guide who will be joining to take us through this. And then on day three, after a nice breakfast in the morning, a slightly earlyish breakfast, we drive to Ranthambore National Park. It's a beautiful air conditioned vehicle. There are lovely highway roads, a new road that has been built, and it's about a 5.5 hour drive that takes us to Ranthambore from Delhi. And we reach Taj Sawai, which is going to be our home for the next 4 nights and also our base from where we explore Ranthambore National Park. Ranthambore National Park, on that very day, day three itself, as soon as we reach, we have lunch and we go off on our first afternoon safari to explore what I think is hands down one of the most beautiful national parks of India. With these majestic ficus trees, the ruins in Ranthambore National Park within the boundaries of the national park, we explore, we drive around and look for various kinds of wildlife. Somewhere in the middle of the national park, there is up on a plateau a beautiful fort called the Ranthambore Fort, due to which Ranthambore National Park gets its name. These ruins and these forts are a sign that this place, which today is a sanctum sanctorum for wildlife, used to be a place where people lived along with animals. However, people still visit the park. Local people visit it once a week at least, because this fort is also a place where there are still active temples and other sort of sacred places which people like to visit, right? And along with this, of course, is all this wildlife, right? Which we are going to explore over 7 safaris in the 4 days that we spend in Ranthambore National Park. At the end of our exploration of this, some of us will go back to Delhi. The others who have booked the extension go to Agra for 2 nights, where they will again have their own sort of expert guide who, is an expert in history and culture, mainly history actually for Agra, right? And you see one of the seven wonders of the world there, a really, truly, unbelievably beautiful building. So, having gone through the itinerary, let's look at the weather and let me help you get your packing list in place. So, it's going to be hot. It's going to be really, really hot. The expected temperatures during the entire season through which we run the India Quest Tiger trip is 79 to 113 Fahrenheit, more or less. It could be plus or minus 1 or 2 Fahrenheit. The earlier part of the season, which is late March, early April, the mornings at least are still quite cool, so much so that you might even need a light jacket. But otherwise, it is hot, and dry. However, with new sort of climate changes, thing, we almost never know when the the weather gods will surprise us with a shower. So this has happened last year when we suddenly had 2 days of like thunderstorms. So you never know. So just be prepared for sort of an unexpected shower as well. So, what do you pack? My general way is to go from head to toe, right? So, let's start with what you need. Hats and caps, very, very important. I need not say. The sun is really sharp. Most of the vegetation has dried out, so even shade is on and off, right? Besides that, sunglasses, very important also to help you with the sun, but also with the dust. It can be quite dry and dusty on our safaris. Buffs also really help you. It's actually more than keeping you sort of, you don't need to keep it warm, but to help you with the dust, you can take it over your face. And also sometimes guests use it to cover their camera lenses and things like that, right? So multi-purpose, fantastic piece of cloth product. Uh, Shirts, half sleeve shirts, or even actually full sleeve shirts are quite useful, mainly because it protects you from the sun. But if you have a really good sunblock, you're good with even half sleeve shirts. T-shirts are also great on safari, but also as a change of clothes when you're just in your hotel spending the afternoon between safaris. It's really nice and relaxing to get into our lovely organic cotton t-shirts. Shorts are great, totally doable through the warm days of the safari. Just be sure that you use sunblock on exposed skin. However, you do need long pants for the Delhi day for sure. We are visiting religious sites like the mosque and the Sikh temple, the Gurudwara. Over there, it is considered disrespectful if you're not wearing full pants, right? Footwear, I usually go through with just closed-toed sandals. Excuse me. Those of you who, excuse me, I don't know about the US right now, but we are certainly going through a little bit of a cough, cold, change of season, span right now. Anyway, so I was saying, closed-toed open sandals work perfectly for me throughout the trip. However, for those of you who prefer your regular hiking shoes, you're welcome to wear that. They're great. However, we are not doing any sort of major serious hikes on this trip at all. There will be some nature walks, but any of these shoes are adequate for that. For the Delhi part of it, however, it is useful to have shoes that are easy to slip in and slip out because we do take off our shoes at the temples and the mosque. Excuse me. Socks, very useful to carry multiple pairs. Sorry, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully, I'll be okay. Yeah, so carry multiple pairs of socks. Those are really useful. What else do you need? Swimwear. Both of our hotels in Delhi as well as Ranthambore have opportunities for you to swim. They have beautiful pools. Other than that, of course, safari essentials, binoculars, camera, sunscreen, very, very important. Masks. Um, very useful. We are always carrying some on us, but they're useful for the dusty drives in the park. And also, in case someone's coughing like me, it's very useful to have these handy, especially for times when we are driving in closed vehicles, right? Reading glasses, please don't forget them. You will be looking at fine print menus on this trip. I purposely put two of these because I feel it's very important to have two in case you lose one on the trip somewhere. Personal medication, your backpack, and your water bottle, which is going to be your best friend on this trip. Staying hydrated is absolutely important. I cannot stress enough. Besides that, a rain jacket, like I said, if you just want to keep one just in case, but it's really not monsoon in India during the Tiger Quest season, right? Besides that, a light jacket, like I said, I think we need one mainly in early April in the morning safaris. It can be quite cool, surprisingly, for the first hour or so. But also, I kind of like to keep a warm jacket handy, usually on all our trips, even in the warmest trips, because sometimes restaurant temperatures or you find your place itself in air conditioned rooms which might be quite cold, like public spaces. So for those, these are quite useful to have them handy. Yeah, that's it mainly from the packing list perspective. I hope it's simple and easy. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them at the end of the presentation. Okay, important thing in your packing list. How much money do I carry? So you actually don't need much cash money at all on this trip. Mainly, I mean, as you know, on NatHab trips, everything is covered, right? Including tips for all your local sort of waiters, local guides, all that is covered. However, you will need money to spend for personal nature, so alcohol, but for that, credit cards are accepted. Laundry also, laundry is available in both the hotels, accommodations where we are staying, and they accept cards. Shopping also in most places. There's not much shopping on at all, but we may visit one or two sort of craft centers. They also accept cards. EL tips, like you can choose whether you want to do that in cash, but you also have the electronic option available. The only place where you might need cash is additional tipping. So as I told you, tips are covered. However, we if someone's gone above and beyond for you, many guests feel like giving a little extra. So that's probably the only thing I can think of on this trip. Coming to activities, excuse me. So like I said, it's mainly a safari trip, and let me kind of tell you how safaris work on this trip. So Ranthambore National Park is really big national park, over 500 square miles, and of that, only 20% is open for tourism. That's how the government of India, that's the design for conservation for large wildlife in India, right? To limit human sort of use of land which has been designated as national park for protection of animals. Within that 20% also, the areas are divided into various routes and zones, right? So this example, this one zone that you see on your screen encircled in blue is divided into 5 different routes. So of your 7 safaris that are booked well in advance, it's sort of the luck of the draw, right? So you automatically get assigned a route, and all your 7 safaris, you go on the pre-assigned routes inside the national park, right? So that's how safaris work. We, on this trip, the maximum number of guests are 6 guests, and all of us go on jeeps like this. We'll have 3 jeeps, and per jeep, there'll be 2 guests, one driver who is a registered driver with the national park, and a local guide. Besides these four, the expedition leaders sort of rotate through the 7 safaris in different jeeps. so that they can spend time with all the guests, turn by turn. How will tiger sightings be? It could be anything. This is a massive cat, the largest cat in the world, and it is a bright orange and black cat. And yet, sometimes sightings are either like this, of it sleeping in the middle of the afternoon in a well hidden sort of crevice, to it boldly walking, not even worried about 5 or 10 vehicles around it, right? Sightings can be anything like this. So we will be going into the park in two different slots. We go do morning safaris, which are about 3.5 hours, and we do the afternoon safaris, which are also about 3.5 hours. These are tentative timings. The park authorities may change it a little bit here and there, but it's more or less like this, which means we are back to our hotels in the hottest part of the day, right? So we go out early in the morning at daybreak, and by about 9:30 we have to leave the park. We drive back to our hotel. Our hotel is not far. It's just about 5 to 10 minutes driving distance from one of the park gates where we have maximum safaris. There are sometimes we get the faraway zones, which are about a 20-minute drive, but that's usually quite few, maybe one or two out of 7 safaris. Then you get the whole afternoon to sort of cool off, hydrate, um, eat well, all of that, and then you set out on the next safari only at 2:33 in the afternoon. Since we have such a big break, while you will have time to go back to your room, relax, drink sort of water, hydrate, cool off, and all that, maybe swim, but we also offer activities between safaris, right? So we could offer you a nature walk somewhere in the property or a little bit outside, or even take you to a local craft center or an art school, whatever possible. The expedition leader ends up taking these calls depending on the energy of the group, the availability of the artisans or the artists, and things like that, right? And these activities are totally optional. All activities actually are optional. And taking care of your health and how you respond to the heat and your safety is equally important. And you can pick and choose what out of these you'd like to do, if at all, right? Um, Moving on, um, so yeah, like I was saying, what you need to really know before this trip is that one of your biggest challenges will be the heat. And to deal with the heat, we joke and say you try to be a tiger, right? The tiger gets to soak in cool pools of water and he loves to do that. And we recommend the same. Take some cool off breaks. Wear your cool collars to cool off. Take sufficient rest and hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. It's very, very, very important. If you hydrate, you ensure that you stay healthy and energetic, and just ensures a successful trip, right? Um, what else? So coming to the wildlife part of it, the most exciting part, right? So what are you expected to see other than tigers? In this park, we have a fairly good population of leopards. However, because the leopard in this park is sharing territories with such a big predator, they tend to be much more shy and much more difficult to see, but there is a chance nonetheless. And sometimes by driving around in this beautiful, dry, mysterious forest, sometimes you might see a black fuzzy rock, right? What could that be? None other than the fantastic sloth bear. Again, it's it's a hit and miss. We do have excellent population of sloth bear in the park, but there's no way of tracking them. There's no, it's like you, if you just come across them, right place, right time, you come across them, right? But if you get to see them, they are just a fantastic creature to see. Little mammals like mongoose, large ungulates like the nilgai or the blue bull. This is a type of an antelope, the largest antelope we have. And then, of course, there are deer. This is the sambar. What you see on your screen is the male with antlers and the female, a very important prey species of the tiger, actually. What else? Two different kinds of monkeys, the langur monkey, which are the leaf eating monkeys, and the macaques. And then, of course, a beautiful variety of birds. I always tell my guests that Ranthambore is not just picturesque, beautiful, a good place to look for tigers, but it's also actually a fantastic place to look for birds. Not just, I don't just mean in diversity, but the way Ranthambore gives you an opportunity to watch and observe bird behavior is also just fantastic. Some of my best bird watching experiences have been in this park, and also photography, right? And everything from the beautiful peacock to large birds like the crested serpent eagle, little birds like the lapwings, and the beautiful parakeets and whatnot. I mean, the list is really long. I'm definitely not going to go through all of that. But for those of you who are interested in birding or would like to learn birding, just an excellent opportunity in Ranthambore as well. What else? Food. Um, what do I say? We are in the hands of some of the best chefs, both in Delhi as well as in Ranthambore. There are, both the hotels have excellent kitchens. They serve a mix of Indian and Western food. You have both options. The chefs are really very approachable, very kind, and will go out of the way to cater to all kinds of dietary preferences, allergies, choices, just basically really warm, hospitable, and caring. So if you have any concerns about food, I really think you shouldn't be concerned anymore. That's it. I think with that, I have covered everything that I think was important for you to know before you go on the trip. And I would like to keep the rest of the time to sort of hear from you if you have any questions and if I can answer some of your um, concerns.
All right, Payal, thank you so much. Now, before we start in with the question and answer session, I would like to remind everybody that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. So go to the upper right corner of your screen. You see those three lines there. Click on those and you'll see the question field. Go ahead and put your questions in there. So let's get to some of these questions. All right, let's get to the one that's probably foremost on everybody's mind. What are the chances that we are going to see a tiger?
Great question. I would always say that wildlife sighting is a matter of chance, right? And it is. It is true. However, being in Ranthambore in summer, fighting the heat, you have a fairly good chance of seeing a tiger and maybe even multiple sightings, to be honest. Sometimes, however, maybe once in like many years, we sometimes have a season where, due to unexpected showers and changes in weather, sometimes sightings, sort of the whole trend changes temporarily, but that can happen anywhere. But all in all, in average, you all have a good chance of seeing a tiger on this trip.
All right, that is so good to know. Can you talk about what the air quality is like on the trip? Are we going to have any worry about pollution or any kind of breathing issues?
That's a very good question. The only place I would be worried is Delhi, where for about half a day we are outside exploring the city. For most part, we are in a closed air-conditioned vehicle, and we only get off in two main places are inside a mosque and inside the Sikh temple. So we are sort of indoors. However, for one excursion, we are in the streets where cycle rickshaws run. Uh, for that half a day, you are going to be exposed on and off to the pollution of Delhi. So, if there are breathing issues, that's a good day to carry a good mask. It's really, really helpful, and it allows you to sort of enjoy Delhi because Delhi is such an interesting place. It has been a capital of this country for various kingdoms, like for seven different times in its history, different rulers have ruled India from Delhi, right? Or different parts of India from Delhi. And all those layers of history and culture, it's such an important place and the capital city. So yeah, get a mask, anything else that you would need to help you in case you're prone to this. Other than that, during safaris, it's just that the pathways inside the national park are what we call kacha roads, right? They are not blacktop roads, and especially during the end of the safari, when all the vehicles are leaving the national park, you tend to be one behind the other, and it can get quite dusty. So at those times, you'd want to sort of cover your face with a mask and also sort of cover your binoculars and all the lenses that you have. I hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you so much. All right, let's talk about the hotel rooms for a second. Are they going to be air conditioned?
Yes, at both places. And you can adjust the temperatures, as in they are not centrally air conditioned. You have your own individual air condition of your room and can be adjusted to your choice of temperature.
And do we need any sort of adapters for our electronic devices to plug them in?
Actually, both of our hotels have provisions for the American plug. However, I feel just in case it is a good idea to have a universal plug with you. If you can carry, that'll be great.
Got it. Great. Good to know. And what about the toilets? Are they Western style or are they squat toilets? Could you help us in that
Very good.
department?
Very good question. Both our hotels have Western style toilets in your rooms as well as in the common areas. In the national park, however, as far as I remember, so all of our zones have toilet, like public toilets, if someone needs to use. But as far as I remember, they have both the options. They have the Western as well as the Indian option. Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you. So, can we talk? How many travelers are on each trip?
On each departure on the India Tiger Quest, we have a maximum of six guests. Besides the six guests, there will be an expedition leader who accompanies the group all the way from the time of arrival, I mean, basically from day one to the day of departure.
Gotcha. Good to know. Um, so, what if I wanted to book a private trip instead of going on a group? Can I? Is that something that I can arrange with NetApp?
Absolutely. There is an option, and please get in touch with our adventure specialists, and they will help you out. Our sales team, they are fantastic at it. You can also put your own group together, right? That's also an option, and sort of take over a departure and make it private. But if you don't want to do that, if it's just you who wants to travel by yourself, that's totally possible as well.
Great. Good to know. Um, So, one more question about hotels. If there is something we need, if we're a little bit ill, or will the hotels have like a doctor or a nurse, or is there some place that I could, if I needed a quick something medically, could see somebody?
So when we are in Delhi, obviously there's no problem at all. We are in surrounded by really good doctors and hospitals, so there's no problem at all. We are a bit remote when we come to Ranthambore. We are actually using a new hotel this time, and I'm not quite sure if they have a paramedic on board. However, our hotel is not far from the closest town, that is Savai Madhopur, which is hardly a sort of 15-minute drive, not even. So we are really not that far away from the closest medical help, like the closest doctor, if required. And the larger hospitals will be about 2 hours away, approximately.
Gotcha. Thank you. So,
Also, just so that, sorry, Rob, I just want to add one more thing. Also, all expedition leaders, we have an emergency contact on our phone to VHS, which is the virtual health service. In case of extreme sort of difficulty that we are not able to solve, and it's an emergency, we are able to reach a very qualified doctor over the phone through the VHS helpline. And other than that, every expedition leader on the NatHab team are first aids and CPR certified. Just to let you know.
well, that is good to know. Thank you. So let's talk about water for a second. Drinking water. Do you
Mhm.
recommend drinking bottled water on the trip?
So on NatHab trips, we really work hard to reduce our use of single-use plastic. And on this trip, actually, we can successfully run the whole trip without using bottled water at all. So NatHab will give you water bottles in your sort of kits that you receive. And in both the hotels, there is absolutely safe RO purified potable drinking water, which you can refill. All your rooms will have potable drinking water in glass bottles, which you can use to refill. Every time the room is sort of, they do a turn down or the housekeeping comes by, they refill or replace the water bottles in your rooms with fresh drinking water. Besides that, on our safari vehicles, we also carry extra water bottles. So, besides your water bottle, in case that's not enough, and I can totally understand on hot days you might need more than just that one bottle of water on each safari, there is extra water kept um, in the safari vehicles in glass bottles or in refillable sort of what we call water canters, which you can refill your water bottle with. The same is true even for our excursion in Delhi. We will remind you and encourage you to carry your NatHab water bottle with refilled water. And if you run out of it, we will always have extra water to refill. So there is safe drinking water available throughout the trip without using bottled water.
That's really good to know too, just in case I get thirsty out there. Um,
Yeah.
so, are there any other health risks I need to be worried about? Malaria or anything? Do I need to have any sort of shots before I come out there?
Actually, nothing at all at this time of the year. Yes, India does have malaria, but that's really peaks mainly in the monsoon. And just when the pre monsoon showers start, that's the peak time for malaria. But at this time of the year, it's hot and dry, and malaria is not a concern.
All right, that's good to know. So, do we, if we want to bring some extra cash with us on the trip, would you recommend getting local currency, or are we okay using US dollars?
You're mostly okay using US dollars on this trip, if at all required for tipping or other like smaller shopping areas, they accept. However, just in case we run into a situation where you need Indian rupees, your expedition leader is always equipped with extra cash, and he or she can help you with the exchange or pay for you at that time and settle the account with you later.
Gotcha. Good to know. So, I'm coming out there on this trip, and I'm very excited. Do you recommend any other extensions or other national parks that we can see while we are out there seeing Ranthambore?
So depends on when you're coming. If you're coming earlier in the season, you can actually maybe check if there is a snow leopard trip that you could join a snow leopard departure, which is in Hemis National Park, way far north of the country in the Trans-Himalayan mountain range, where NatHab does a trip to look for snow leopards. That season kind of ends in April, so you should see if you can pair one there. If not, there are also the Grand India trip. I'll have to check the dates to see if, or you'll have to speak to the adventure specialist to see if your dates match up with any of these. Because the Grand India trip goes to three other national parks which are different from Ranthambore, right? Three different national parks, which are also tiger reserve forests, but are in central and northeast of India. So it gives you the opportunity for seeing animals that you don't see in national park, and also just different habitat. Different animals, for example, chance of seeing deer like the Barasingha, which is a critically endangered deer, chance of seeing elephant, chance of seeing the greater one-horned rhinoceros. So that trip is the Grand India trip, and you can find out from NatHab if you could join that trip after yours, if it pairs, if it makes sense date-wise, or if they can have you visit any of those parks. So those parks are, if you want to write down, Kanha National Park, Kanha, Kanha National Park, Bandhavgarh National Park, and Kaziranga, Kazi, Kaziranga National Park in Northeast India, which is famous for its greater one-horned rhinoceros. So those are the three in the central part of central and slightly north of India. And then, of course, like I said, there is Hemis National Park in for snow leopards.
Great, thanks for that advice. All right, so when we are out there in the park, is there a limit to how many vehicles are on each route in the park? Are vehicles going to get clumped together, or will we have enough space to really enjoy what we're seeing?
So that it's a multi-part question, so I'll answer it one by one. Yes, there is an absolute fixed limit of maximum number of vehicles that can enter the park. Uh, there are two kinds of vehicles that enter the park. One is the small gypsies, like the one I showed you in the presentation earlier on. But besides that, let me show you actually. Right? So you have these kind of jeeps that are in the park, but besides that, we also have the canters, okay, which are large vehicles which can seat up to 40, I think, no, sorry, 20 people in each of those, and those also visit the park. It is a way for people who cannot pay this kind of money for exclusive vehicles to still be able to enjoy the park. However, having said that, yes, there are fixed number of vehicles that enter each zone. But what sometimes you do end up having wildlife sightings where you're just one or two or three vehicles, but sometimes it does happen that the tiger's in such a place, like a predictable place where people knew that it would show up, whether it's on a kill or it's in a water hole in its territory, and people know where to predict it. It can happen that multiple vehicles sort of magnet in towards that spot, and you can find yourself in a group of multiple vehicles. Either situation is possible. um, these are public parks which are run by governments, and there are quite strict rules. So, one of the reasons why there is this route system is to distribute vehicles in different routes, but still, there could be about 10 to 15 vehicles in each of these routes. It's possible.
Great. Thank you for answering those questions for us.
Sure.
Um, so, in the vehicles, how many people will be in each vehicle at one time?
On the NatHab trip, just two guests per vehicle, plus a local guide and a driver. So that's four in all, including the man on the steering wheel. Uh, but you will see other vehicles with the same kind of car, but with up to 6 or 8 people in each, up to 6 people in each. But yeah, in ours, it's just two. Just once in a while, the expedition leader will sort of join you on your safari, at which point there will be three instead of two people in the guest section of, of the Jeep.
So, would there be room for my camera bag then? It sounds like there would be.
100%. There is enough and more room for your camera bag.
Well, that's really great to know. Gives us plenty of room to spread out and use our camera equipment. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so, what about weight limits? I know there is weight limits for our luggage. Is there any weight limits for being in the safari vehicles?
Not at all. You can carry all that you like in the safari vehicles. There is no such weight limit.
But on the airplanes, we need to make sure we're not overloading. Is that correct?
That's true. That's true. However, on this trip, we don't have any flights. We are only doing travel by road. So weight is really not a concern. You don't have to worry about electronics or what you're carrying or segregating your luggage. None of those things on this trip. It's only for your international flight when you arrive in India. But other than that, there is no flight and hence no weight limit issues on this trip.
Gotcha. Thank you. What about formal wear? Do we need to dress up for any meals while we're in the hotels or any time, or do we is just casual safari dress good enough?
Casual safari dress is more than adequate. That's absolutely fine. That's pretty much the dress code on all NatHab trips.
Gotcha. Thank you. Um, what about visas? Do we need to apply ahead of time for a visa? And do you know how long that would take for us?
So, your adventure specialist and your concierge are better people to advise you on the Indian visa for US citizens. I'm not very well versed, but from everything that I've heard, yes, you definitely need to apply for visa in advance. I don't really know how much time it takes though.
Gotcha. We'll check in with our adventure specialist on that one. So, is there any kind of downtime on the trip while we're there? If we wanted to, say, have spa treatments, would there be time to book those? And are we ever left on our own to feed ourselves for lunch, for instance?
So, um, okay, so downtime, yes, definitely you will have downtime. Like I was explaining in the presentation, the main activities, the safaris, right, are early in the morning and then only in the afternoon, which gives you almost about 5 hours in between safaris. Uh, this is the time when guests choose to have breakfast or breakfast and lunch or just a brunch. You know, there are all these options, and guests have their preferences. So, usually the expedition leader is around to be with you. They'll be staying in the same accommodation, as in the same hotel as you, the same lodge. So they're usually around, but and meals tend to be together. That's also an opportunity for you to get your questions answered, to dive deep into the region, and things like that. So it's meals are really a nice opportunity for conversations, but you still get downtime. You will have enough downtime in between safaris. Like I was saying earlier, expedition leaders do tend to offer other activities like if you're brave enough to go out for a nature walk, or you want to do a little excursion to the local crafts workshop, those options will be given. But you can always say no and take the time off just to maybe read by the swimming pool, or take a nap in your room, journal if that's what you like. So all of those options, and spa, like you said. In fact, the place where we are staying, both the Delhi accommodation and the one in Ranthambore, they have an excellent, highly recommended spa.
All right, good to know.
Yeah,
Spa treatment sounds great. Um, so, if I'm just a single traveler, would this be a good trip for me to come on as well?
100%. 100%. No doubt. It's a fantastic trip. It's a small group, and the expedition leader has enough room to pay a lot of attention to each individual guest.
Great, thank you so much. So, Payal, is there one particular tiger sighting or something that happened on a trip that you would like to share with us? Some amazing moment that we could hopefully look forward to seeing something like that?
Um, Tough question. I have been a naturalist for almost 15 years now, and most of our guests, people who come for wildlife travel in India, come to see the tiger, and now in the last few years, also the snow leopard. Um, what can I think of? It was once, actually, many years ago, that it's just one that comes to mind, but trust me, there are many, many, many different things that one can expect on these trips. But this was one where I was with a few guests, and we were driving on a narrow bund between two water bodies on either side. And this was in central India, in Kanha National Park, where also one of our trips, NatHab trip, goes. And the sides, the width of the that bund, that elevated area, was enough for one vehicle to drive, right? If another vehicle is coming from the other side, you'd have to wait to let that pass and then go up on that sort of elevated bund. So we had just climbed onto the bund and we were driving, so I could only go in one direction, right? And we heard alarm calls, right? Alarm calls are what we call distress calls. These are calls, special sounds that are made by prey species, prey animals like the langur monkey, the deer. They make the sound when they see or sense a predator. And we heard frantic calls coming from ahead of us. And we stopped the vehicle, typically switched off and stopped to listen, because these are sounds which are our cues on how to locate the tiger or how to find predators, right? So I stopped to listen to gauge how far these calls were coming from, in which direction they were coming from, and all of that. And I thought it was a little far away. I moved up and almost reached the other end of this elevated area. Remember, there is water on either side, big, big water bodies on both sides. And I reached almost the other side. And towards me from the front, a tigress begins to walk. And she's walking towards us, roaring and advertising her presence. Maybe she was in heat. Maybe she was just there to reinforce her territory. And she starts walking towards us, leaving us no choice but to back up. And we backed up all the way. It was maybe just maybe about 300 meters long, but trust me, at that time it felt so long and so wonderful, because there's a roaring tigress walking towards us, not budging, not worried about us. and forcing us to back up, right? So we kept reversing, reversing, reversing till we reached the end where I could actually turn off and park to the side. And the tigress just gracefully continued doing what she was doing and walked sort of past us and on her way to wherever she had planned to go. So this was just a wonderful, exciting, adventurous sort of sighting because on one hand you're looking at this tigers walking towards you and roaring, and their calls reverberate. They can be so loud, especially when they're so close. You can almost hear it, like hear the vibration in your body, right? And at the same time you're also looking like sort of two sides of the vehicle, making sure it's being backed up, in a safe way. So just in general, a high adrenaline yet a really powerful sort of sighting of a tiger. That's the one that came to mind right now.
Payal, thank you so much for sharing that amazing story with us. Unfortunately, that is going to be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'd like to hand it back to you for your closing comments.
um what can I say? We, the India team of NATHAB, are preparing for this season to start, the India Tiger Quest, and we are waiting to welcome you all on this trip. It's a really beautiful, like a short trip, but a really power packed trip for you to experience our country and our wildlife. Right? So, welcome you all very, very soon and look forward to being on these trips.
Payal, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And
My
I'd
pleasure.
also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. So if you are
Mhm.
interested in information on how you can travel to see tigers with NatHab, please give us a call at 800-543-8917, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. And if you are part of a photo club and would like NetHab to speak to your members about nature and travel photography, email us at webinars@nathab.com. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude today's webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.